Okay, everybody. So one of your choices for your final exam is this fabric political or social banner project that I'm hoping some of you will investigate. So if you go through the lesson here, there's kind of my attempt to contextualize and uh, present you with information that will help you to sort of um, see how the creation of banners has a relationship not just to social and political movements, but also to design. So, one of the things that we, kind of think about with banners in particular are sort of social justice and civil rights movements. So, I think so that you can kind of understand where I'm coming from here when you read this, I just don't see how we can, bear witness to this extremely historic moment and not have an opinion to vocalize. Now, a lot of the information, that you might find online about banners and protests could very well be triggering. So, be sort of conscious of the type of information that you are engaging in researching. The thing that comes to mind the most right now in America and actually globally is Black Lives Matter and the way that Black Lives Matter utilizes the handmade poster, as in, the poster here on the left on cardboard, as well as utilizing a more traditional sort of fabric banner, like what we see in the center. Banners are design, they have to have strong design to be effective. And so one of the things that I think we can really look to in terms of the history of banner making are the way that, banners sort of begin historically in ancient Rome as an indicator of a family or of, some type of military group or some type of location. And this sort of transcends into banners that are made for religious purposes, such as this banner here, which is from a church in Cornwall, which is in England, and how the once we hit sort of industrial revolution time, and we start to see the development of workers' rights and unionization of workers, it wasn't difficult to transcend the collective engagement in banner making that was happening in the churches, um, and to utilize the processes that have been established through this shared collective activity of creation of banners for the church, um, and to bring that into the union hall, to bring that into the Union Lodge. And one of the reasons is simply because the workers that were making the banners for the churches, those were the same workers who started to demand recognition for their work and their rights as workers. And a lot of what I sort of looked at here with this, the background for this lesson with you, interestingly enough, really is coming from England. And um, that isn't just because I'm British and I'm sort of like thinking about my history, which is, of course, you know, undeniable to that I, am obviously thinking about my experiences as an individual, but also this like sort of um, I think parallel sort of nature of the history of industrial revolution to labor revolution to um, really what has remained in England to be almost like a form of democratic socialism, and how um, the manner of the banner in England has retained a certain level of import that doesn't seem to quite sort of transcend into America. Now, if we go back and look at this protest picture, we can definitely see the utilization of the banner here. But what we see, I think, a little bit more of in America are the use of signs as a highly personalized, easy to create mechanism of social action. And this, of course, is not universal. This isn't, of course, not across the board. But what I'm sort of speaking to is, I think, a very entrenched history in England of trade union and workers' union um, utilization of banners. Now, I've found this interesting series about banners for you. Again, all of them are coming from British history. But the first one is really interesting because it kind of like discusses how photocopies can also be banners and how photocopies also require the same attention to design and design elements that, for instance, like a much more large fabric created banner might have. So please watch these videos. I do think that they're informative. And there's also an article here for you about the Hillsborough disaster. So that's basically what this first video kind of talks about is this um, disaster at a football um, field during a football match in England. And that it's been a situation which the British public, in particular Liverpudlians, have sort of returned to again and again, demanding reinvestigation, demanding uh, y- the attempt of individuals hurt during this disaster to gain recognition that what happened was not their fault, which is originally how it was labeled as being the fault of the individuals who were killed and hurt during this disaster. And so it's like just recently been re-ruled on, and it's an interesting thing to kind of um, see how uh, the public utilize the colors of Liverpool, which is red and white, and then also the font and the text of this newspaper, The Sun, which they are sort of protesting and speaking out against. So, um, you might want to go through the article. You don't have to read all of it, but maybe just go through and give a glimpse so that you can kind of understand what they're protesting about before you start the video. Um, so I've given you kind of a little bit of a timeline here, Wikipedia article to help you have a timeline for kind of like how banners have evolved. Um, in particular, I think the things that we think about with banners are civil rights movements and labor movements, women's suffrage, for instance. And it's really interesting that, women's suffrage, we can really kind of see this bridging of space in a way where women's skills um, are brought out of the drawing room and into the streets to fight for the right to vote. And so there's kind of like an interesting transcendence between social change and political change within the boundaries of what is traditionally a female art process. In contemporary art, we have a lot of artists who are currently really investigating banners and fabric works. Um, the history of this really starts to come out of feminist art and queer art, but now many artists from all kinds of communities are investigating the creation of banners. This is a banner by an artist, Jeremy Deller, Sex Workers of the World Unite, International Union of Sex Workers. And these banners are part of like a larger group of work that Jeremy Della has been working on. This is another one of Jeremy Della's designs, Joy in People. And this Jeremy Della was created with Ed Hall, who is a very, very famous British banner maker. Sorry. And you can read a short article on the relationship between Ed Hall and Jeremy Della here. And then there's also a YouTube video which I thought I had included, but I just will need to go back and re-embed in the article that shows this really interesting march that happened in 2014 in England that featured approximately 100 banners from Ed Hall. So watch that video. You know, it is from someone who's at the march, so it's kind of loud, and I just think it's really neat to see a single banner maker's work appearing over and over and over again throughout this protest. So watch the video. I apologize. I did think it was here, but it's currently not. That's actually what that march is actually what this photograph's from. But I will make sure to put that in there for you when I'm done recording this voiceover. So another artist I wanted to share with you is Tracey Emin. She is part of what was known as YBA, the Young British Artist Group that came to prominence during the mid-90s. This is one of her banners. It's called I Do Not Expect. And so her work is really very much about like sort of women's issues. It's very much made in a highly informal manner. And so that's really what I wanted to do here was to pick a formal, like look how formal that design is. You know, even this design is very formal in terms of the understanding of the formal design layout that we've been studying. But Tracey Emin's design definitely is not formal. It's much more like quilt-like. And these are actually more thought of as blankets than banners, but they are displayed in museums like a banner would be. So if we look at this, we can see that Emin is using lots of different types of patterns, lots of different types of fonts. It's very informal. You know, the quality is different from like this highly created, highly you know, refined design of Ed Hall's. Well, Jeremy Dell is designed Ed Hall's work. And from that, we can actually speak to the fact that Ed Hall is a professional banner maker. It's what he does for a living. Tracey Emin is a fine artist and works with many different types of mediums. And the goals are a bit different. Ed Hall's work is meant to be seen during a protest or a march of some type where clarity of information should be very easily gained via the presentation of the banner, whereas with Tracey Emin, clarity is slower because this is a work in a gallery or in a museum, and you can spend more time with it. It doesn't need to have the same immediate impact because you're only seeing it for 10 seconds as it walks past you. This is meant to be consumed at a much slower rate. So there's a nice article here that I linked to the Tate Gallery, an article about Tracey Emin's work that focuses on the Falklands War. If you don't know what the Falklands War is, you should look it up. It is basically a small war that happened, but still over 900 people died in the war. And it was really a war started, you know, in an attempt to solidify the recognition of Britain still as a global power, which of course it wasn't and isn't today. And so have a look at some background on Falklands War, and then read the article. I didn't put the work out because it has some language that may be triggering, but you can go ahead and click the article and go through that if you want. I also, wanted to include this piece which I've made. This is a banner that I made in honor of Tyra Trent, who was a trans woman who was murdered in Baltimore. This is one of my ongoing memorial pieces. This took me and for assistants about 300 to 400 hours to make, and it's full of hand-printed fabrics, 25 braids of hair, each tied to a bell, each one representing a year of the life of Tyra. Even things like the rod that it's displayed on is painted with the transgender flag colors, hand-printed runes, and then I do a lot of this printing where I print silkscreen over hair to get all these different textures. So this piece is a highly labor-intensive work. And to talk about the design of that, I actually included my map. And so this is the type of map that I have prepared for curators. Like this piece is going to be going to the San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles in January of 2021. And so there's a map here for curators so they can see what the design really is all about. I describe what the different runes mean and kind of give an indication of what all the different little elements that I designed in the piece symbolize. So your goal is to create a banner using the fabric from your kit and any other materials you wish to incorporate to speak to a topic of your choice. I'm not seeking you to create something about a specific political or social mindset. I believe that all voices are welcome in the classroom. I did include the Bellevue College Statement of Inclusion and Affirmation. So if you have any question about what you may or may not say, go back and look at that. That's going to help direct you towards understanding, what would be appropriate information and language to incorporate into your banner. But I'm not here to speak to you about any certain political mindset. I just want you to find ways to use design to voice your opinion. So you've got a yard of fabric in your kit, so you must use the yard of fabric. And the banner that you create must have at least one handmade pattern, one area that is hand printed using some form of printing, at least 5 letters that are stitched, so 5 letters that you've stitched the letter into fabric, or 5 letters that are stitched on. It must hang in some way, so some type of hanging mechanism. And then you've got to do thumbnails in your designs. You're going to turn it in as a Word document. And then the final size of your dimensions for your banner have to be 14 inches by 14 inches. It can be much larger than that if you want, but it cannot be smaller than 14 by 14. Thumbnails and sketches, you're going to follow the thumbnail process we've been using all along. 10 small thumbnails, 5 medium thumbnails, 2 half-page thumbnails, 1 full-page thumbnail. You may use any materials you wish to do that. Included in your Word document with your thumbnails should be a 300-word statement that tells me about what your goal is. It's a personal statement, so be very clear, but you don't need to include references. And then you're going to make a second file, which will be a PDF or a Word document. It's a Word document. And this should include lots of really high resolution photographs of your banner. So I'm going to be grading your photographs as much as your project, okay? Because if I cannot see it, then I cannot grade it. So you really need to make sure you set aside some time to take really good photographs of your work. So different types of printing methods that you might want to explore. The first one would be stamping. You can purchase pre-made stamps for this. You can buy stamps at Michaels and use those stamps. You've already got printing ink, it came in your kit. And so you would just like lay the printing ink out on a slab, and then you can, and by slab, even just a piece of glass would be fine. And then just dip the stamps into the ink and then print with the stamps. A pre-made stamp could even be something like the bottom of a shoe. A pre-made stamp could even be something like your fingerprint. So lots of openness here in terms of how you're going to make, you know, a pattern with stamping. One of the best tricks for stamping with fabric is to place like maybe like a towel or something underneath the fabric, and that helps you to be able to push down and the fabric kind of wraps around the stamp, and I find sometimes that helps. You may also use jelly plates. Now you don't have a jelly plate in your kit, but you can buy one at Amazon. They're really fun, really great tools, and something you can use again and again. Here's a link to a playlist I have on my YouTube site about using a jelly block. Okay, so you can watch that, see if that interests you. Now, the other thing that you can do is like a linoleum block print. If you've done linoleum before, I think that's great. If you haven't, I'm a little worried about you doing it without having some hands-on experience and hands-on teaching, but you can always convince me that you think you can handle it. I've got a whole playlist of videos here of how to set up to print, how to carve, how to cut, how to do everything that you need to do to create a linoleum block. So you can go ahead and go through and look at those videos if you want. So the biggest goal that we have here is to make something that has really great design. I want to see banners that have strong design elements to them, but I also want this project to be really fun and for you to really get something personal from this project. And I hope that this project interests you. And if you have any questions, reach out. You need to go ahead and try to bring your project ideas and questions to your meeting with me on December 3rd.